This is In the Zone with Ian Robb and Dancin Rodda. One's a mental toughness coach who also helps riders with recovery. The other, a horseman with soul, who is also a marriage counselor for the rider and horses. Together, they dive beyond ribbons and rankings to where real riders train, the mind. From elite arenas to quiet barns, this show is about the mental edge, the recovery rhythm, and the heart that keeps you in sync with your horse and yourself. So whether you're tuning in from the tack room or the open road, saddle up. You're in the zone now.
Hey Pete, what's the biggest problem with horses? Isn't it the horses that we hear all the time?
Today we're joined with someone who spent her life helping riders understand that the real breakthrough happens when we change, not them.
She is a world-renowned horsewoman, educator, and the creator of the Happy Horse, Happy Life. And she's here to challenge how you think about connection, communication, and performance. Pete, who is that?
That would be Linda Parelli.
Hey, welcome, Linda. Great to have you.
Thank you. What an intro. I would sum it up by saying the horse was fine till we showed up.
Mm.
And then either we are improving him or we are killing him, as Charles de Comfy said one time.
Wow.
Yeah, strong words.
Well, this is fun for me because Linda was one of my mentors in the horse world. I spent 7 years as an instructor for the program.
In Parelli Natural Horsemanship days.
Yes, ma'am. And I spent 3 years on campus riding with Pat and Linda and teaching courses at the ranch. So, yay, we spent a lot of time. And I would say Linda is the reason why I get in the zone or help my students get in the zone.
Wow.
It was about the mental aspect from Linda.
Thank you. That's
You're
awesome. Such a good student.
We'll talk about him being a student, but I want to get the inside scoop. But this is a very meaningful one for us because we've been wanting to have you on for a while. You and I saw each other at the small animal hospital there at Wack and town, which is nice. So because I feel like we're putting all the pieces together now on how this all kind of works a little bit. But
tell us a little bit about your background so that we have some listeners that don't know who.
Not many, but we do have some.
Back, do you want me to go?
As far back as you think is relevant.
I think it's relevant to talk about, I got a scholarship to go to university to become a teacher. And 2 years into it, I didn't want to do it anymore. And I conveniently left right before the exams. And I told my friend at the time who was at uni with me, I said to her, "You're the reason I'm leaving." And she's like, "What? And why?" And I said, "Because you're passionate about being a teacher for kids." And I said, "I am not. And I want to get out in the world and I want to work and I want to see the world." And so I'm leaving. My parents were horrified and they thought, well, maybe she's going to go back in a year or two, just take a gap year. But I didn't. I got out into the beauty therapy industry. So I was in skincare for 12 years and I became, which is ironic, the education director. So even though I left uni, because I didn't want to be a teacher, guess what? I ended up being a teacher. And so then after 12 years, I was having a lot of trouble with one of my horses. And that's how I met Pat Parelli, because this is in Australia. And he was coming through and doing some clinics. And I saw a video of him riding without a bridle. And I thought, God, if he can do that, I can learn something because I can't stop my horse with about $500 worth of gadgets on its head and in its mouth. So I went, and of course that changed my life because I saw the light about, how we need to be with horses and changed my whole approach. And of course, the success story that my horse became was huge. He was famous all over the world, more famous than me, because he was the one that caused me to change. And so then I came to America and Pat and I got married and he said, "Will you help me change the world?" And I said, "Yes," having no idea what that would entail. And if, it's kind of like an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, but don't look at the elephant, start at the toenail, So if I'd known what it was going to take, I don't think I ever would have signed up, but it's like one little bite at a time. And pretty soon you're chewing on the world, So it was a massive experience and we put on huge seminars all over the world. And it was, those times when everybody was really into personal development. So that was the 90s and 2000s. And it was huge. We had audiences of 2,000, 5,000, 7,000. In England, we performed at the National Events Centre in Birmingham, flew our horses over there. I mean, it was rock star stuff. It was crazy. And yeah, so my role was to write the programs, because somehow I'm naturally a teacher, even though I left
I was going to say,
Well,
teacher
yeah.
came back.
Yeah,
That's
apparently
so funny.
it was meant to be. And I studied actually, when I was in my 20s, I studied a lot of adult education through people like Robert Kiyosaki and Dr. Stephanie Burns and Tony Robbins. And so that shaped me enormously. Plus another mentor of mine, Glenn Braddy, who was, I would say, for want of a better word, a philosopher. And he really helped me change in terms of my relationships with people and with myself. So, and then I went into the horse world and kind of dragged that stuff with me. And that's what Pete talks about, because a lot of what I learned from those mentors and teachers, I brought into the horse world. So when people would interview me and they'd say, who do you look at in the horse world? Who do you get inspired by? I don't look. I look in the personal growth world because that's really what we're doing.
So I would do something kind of similar when I would go work, and I taught tennis for a long time. And there are certain programs I like Nick Baltieri's, and I'd say, okay, what do I take from this program working at an academy, and what would I want to keep, and then what would I want to change? But I also, with Tony Robbins, living in San Diego for a long time, know him quite well, and the staff and other people that we kind of get there. So definitely, I always take a look at things, and so I don't like recreate the wheel. I just take a look and I take what I like from it and say, I'm going to use this part and then modify it and make it into my own. Is that what you did too?
Um, Pretty much, yes, because I adapted a lot of what I learned in the personal growth areas to coaching riders and people who had extreme fear issues with horses. And then also I would see how I could, like I developed like a personality coding system for horses called Horseanality. And God, when was that? In the late 90s or something?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it became huge. So then instead of people just going, oh, my horse is an idiot and he's stupid and he's just crazy and lazy or whatever, they were able to see that he was a different type of horseanality. And so, you had extroverts and introverts and right brain, left brain.
We used to call Linda the interpreter for Pat. Pat would say something to you and you'd be like,
What
what
did
did
he
he
say?
just say? And then Linda could explain it and Pat would go, well, that's what I said. And we're like, no, that's not what you said. But makes more sense that Linda said it.
Yeah, so I think my job is a little bit of an interpreter, and I mean, obviously I've developed a lot of skills along the way in horsemanship, but my people skills were always stronger because that was my background.
And then, unfortunately, you guys split up.
Yes, then we
Yeah.
split up, what, 5 years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. And you have that moment where you go, who am I? Like, what am I going to do? I was always identified as being part of this super couple, power couple. And now I'm on my own. It's fantastic because, I was always supporting Pat in everything that he did. And I did some of my own original things. And then I couldn't take them with me in the divorce. And I had to develop new things. And the freedom to do that, I suddenly realized I don't have to ask anybody if this is okay and does it match up or whatever. I had this incredible sense of freedom to create what I felt needed to be done to help train horses to train people to train horses.
And you probably don't know this, but I had lots of students call me and go, what is Linda going to do? And I said, she's going to fly.
Just wait.
Yeah. She's not going to have anybody to say no.
That's so funny. So it's kind of like the band. You break up the band, and then the singer, like Hall and Oates or something like that, all of a sudden Hall is doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And that gives you the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. And that's a great perspective that you have there, because I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people that I know in the horse world are in the horse world because they don't get along too well with people.
Right.
So you're one of the anomalies that can actually communicate and help out the people, because that's what I find most
And
fascinating.
then you created Happy Horse.
Happy Horse, Happy Life, and the How to Talk Horse curriculum. So I'm interpreting yet again what horses are saying.
great. So
It's like,
I'm excited.
yeah, so I thought, well, this is going to be easy. It's going to take about 6 months. It took me 3 years, and I developed 10 modules. And basically, when I talk about happy horse, people go, oh, yeah, I want my horse to be happy. And then I ask them, well, how do you know if your horse is happy? And they're like, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. Like, I don't really know. He puts his ears forward, when you give him a cookie. He likes you when you come to feed him, but then after that, he's like, I got no use for you. So I really wanted to define what a happy horse is. And it's a horse that is connected, relaxed, responsive, confident, self-regulating, flexible, and wants to be in harmony with you. That's the result.
Is that a challenge for most of the riders?
Yes.
And
Because
how do you help them?
most people get stuck in responsiveness. If the horse isn't doing what they want, they immediately assume that it's disobedient or it's unresponsive. So they work on, you've got to move, you've got to be more responsive. But if you understand the mental emotional side of the horse, when a horse says no, he doesn't just say no. He either says, I won't or I can't. And you have to approach those in different ways. Because if he says, I won't, which is like, you think you're my leader, forget it. And now if you get in a fight with that horse, it's over. Now you've got to use reverse psychology. You've got to be quite clever and artful about it. And if it's a horse that says, I can't, and you force it, it'll do it. But it'll be so tense and worried and fearful. And the relationship then, is horrible. You're always going to be restraining it.
So we're here at the World Equestrian Center, and the League of Nations is going on. It's not a very busy day here at all whatsoever, because it's hard to find parking.
Yeah, it took me 2 hours to park.
But come to thinking of it, when you see a rider going over the jumps, and all of a sudden that horse stops right in front of that jump, how should that rider handle that? What do you recommend?
Well, that's a little controversial because a lot of horses, not all of them, obviously, because there's brilliant riders and competitors are incredible. But a lot of horses are afraid to stop because of what might happen to them, because it's disobedience and thou shalt not stop. And so what I do when I teach horses, because I have a horse that is an incredible jumper, but he was very afraid of training. And so I teach horses the goal. The goal is to get over the other side. Most horses have the goal of don't stop. So it's a little twist on the psychology. When the horse knows my reward's on the other side of the jump, that's what I'm supposed to do. They approach a jump in a very eager way. And then you don't have to push them. If you push them in front of the jump, now it's like, don't stop, don't stop. And some horses are going, I'm stopping.
It's like me in school. Don't tell me what I can't do. Tell me what I can do or what you want me to do.
Well, what's scaring me is I'm hearing Lisa, my girlfriend, talk to me, and she's using the same thing, but it's not a jump in front of me, but I'm doing what she wants me to do.
Excellent training. Excellent trainer.
And then you throw the dog in.
Exactly. And I blow up the world.
Yeah.
So, Lynn, I just got to ask you, if horses had a group chat for humans, how bad would we look?
People say to me, I wish my horse could talk. And I say, no, you don't. You don't want to hear in words what they're thinking. We get away with a lot. But in fact, they are talking to us. They talk to us through their expressions and body language. And it's really a very subtle thing. I think about it like sign language for the hearing impaired, or speech impaired, that it's very subtle signals and expressions and feelings and energy that they really get that is really behind that communication system. And most people miss it, go, oh, don't do it yet. Your horse is tense. And they're like, really? How can you tell? Because people haven't been taught how to read horses. And in order to talk horse, you need to read horses.
And degrees. That's why
it's the nuances. And, that's the difference between being, at the basic level or very advanced.
Right. One of the dressage ladies I teach, she would say, oh, I know what relaxation is. And then she saw what I thought relaxation is. She goes, mine's not even close to what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah. So that makes a huge change.
Yeah. And, most horses are in a state of constant confusion and entrapment. They don't really know. They're just doing the best they can. And people don't realize it. the horse is confused. He doesn't really know what you want. And then you use more pressure because that's what we humans do. And so horses can have a lot of trouble. And I have a job because, most of the horses that I used to see were destined for the end. It's like, you know, this horse is crazy. It's nuts. It's like, well, it was fine till we showed up.
So where in your journey did you realize that you were the problem or the human was the problem?
Right from the beginning with Pat. In fact, the first clinic that I went to with him, he was asking people about their horses. And one lady said, "Oh, I have trouble catching my horse sometimes." And usually people go, "Oh, he's perfect. He's great, except sometimes I can't catch him." And so Pat said something then, and this is what really shifted everything for me. He said, "Well, have you ever looked at it from the horse's point of view?" And I remember thinking, never heard somebody say that. And he said, "Imagine if you came home and your husband ran out the back door. Would you say, 'Geez, my husband's hard to catch?' Or would you go, 'Maybe I have a relationship problem?'" So that's where everything changed for me. And then I dove in deep because of all the people skills and training that I'd had beforehand, relationships and communication was very big for me. And I never thought about doing that with horses because I didn't understand their psychology.
Isn't that funny? Because I have a little peanut psychology degree too, as I call it. And I worked with tennis players on their mental aspect of it all too. But communication's a big part. And I have to say, and if my girlfriend's listening, yes, I can communicate a lot better, Lisa. I agree. But it's funny when I taught, I try and get everything out of them and doing what's going on. But it's kind of interesting when you experience it yourself and then how to put it in play.
Mhm.
And with you two here, your ability to be able to help out the riders with the horsemanship. I mean, that's kind of interesting. That's phenomenal. It's because
Yeah, and one of my specialties, it's not the only thing I do, obviously, but one of my specialties is helping people with confidence issues. And I have a couple of students that are with me right now for various amount of time, months and weeks. And they used to be terrified of their horses. And I remember one day I asked the girl, "What's your plan?" She said, "Well, right now it's just to breathe." I said, "What are you doing on your horse? You cannot be up there and be scared. Your horse needs you to be the leader. Get off." Oh, I've told Nebra to get off. That's the worst advice ever. You'd rather be you know, on the ground and alive than flying through the air in an involuntary dismount.
absolutely.
So the horse, we need to do what the horse needs. And if we're up there worried about us, things are not going to go well.
So how would you describe being in the zone? If I said, how does Linda Parelli describe being in the zone?
I did a heart math thing once, kind of by accident. One of our instructors way back had a heart math thing, and I'm sure it's evolved a lot since then. And she put a little sensor on my finger, and it was connected to her laptop. And then she would ask me questions, or we would talk about things, and she would watch the zones that I would go into. And then all of a sudden, a student came up to ask me a question. And so I'm talking to the student and answering their question. And she goes, "Look at you." She said, "You're way up here in was it the green or something? I can't remember the color." She said, "As soon as you started coaching, teaching, talking to her, your, what do you call it? Is it attunement?
Something like that.
I don't know, but there was something
Very
that
focused, very calm,
it
very
was,
relaxed. It wasn't a lie detector team. It was a totally different something.
but the whole thing is that, I mean, I love teaching. That's my thing. Even when I was going through my divorce, I couldn't train my horse if I was not right. But I could teach because I would just get into that zone
Exactly.
where it's
You're in your
water
own
and fun.
soapbox. You're like in the
Yeah,
fence. So that's where you thrive.
yeah.
And I find it fascinating that you quit school
Isn't that funny?
and then that's what you're doing.
I was destined,
That's
just
just
not through the
funny.
university route.
Now, was there a certain horse that you were talking about that got you into this more
Yes.
horsemanship? Can we talk about that horse?
Yes, his name was Regalo, and he was a thoroughbred that had raced, but he wasn't very fast. He was built more like a quarter horse, really big, solid thing. And it's like I was so desperate to have a horse back in my life because I'd had horses as a kid,
Hmm.
and I stopped riding when I went to university. And then 7 years later, after getting into business, it's like I got to have a horse again. And so now you fall in love with like almost the first horse you see. So there were all these red flags. The lady goes, "Well, he's 7 and this is his 5th owner." I'm like, That's not good. But I never thought about that. I was like, he's beautiful. I want him. So I took him home and it was a disaster from the get-go.
And that's how I make money.
So funny. Because when you're saying that to me, I talk to my friends and says, yes, he's been married 3 times, but we're ready to get going in our relationship. I'm going, oh, okay.
I'm gonna fix him.
Yeah, but that's what it's like. So Rogello was the one that humbled me enough to go to a cowboy for advice,
That's fun.
because I was an English rider. I wanted to do eventing, but this horse was uncontrollable. So then I had to do dressage, which I thought was so boring until I really got into it. And then I was fascinated. And you're going to talk to Luis Lucio in a minute, who is my mentor. We've known each other for a long time, but the way that he teaches dressage is magical. It's amazing. So, yeah, that's the horse that changed my life. He opened all the doors for me.
So you can give me one word to describe dressage. What would it be?
Ballroom dancing.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry. So we're at an environment like WEC. Everybody's chasing results. What happens to the horse in this environment? Because our listeners are going to be some of these people.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I mean, we can all be legends in our own lunchbox back at home, and think we're doing pretty well. But then you get into an environment like this, and you've got some pretty high level people here, that compete on the world stage. And now it's like, who's who is who? You can't fake it. You got to show up. And I think, a lot of people have horses, they have trainers for their horses. And I understand that, you need to do that. And I think Lewis can shed a bit more light on that. But riders often ride like pilots instead of riding like a trainer, and thinking about how they can communicate with the horse and what's it going to be like tomorrow. I have a saying, ride for tomorrow. But results are such a big thing. Preparation is everything. The horses have to be obedient, but then how do you get that desire, where the horse wants to give, like, put his heart and soul into it and give you that effort and that power, give it to you, not because you forced it out of him. And I think that's the art. And that's, every now and then you'll see a horse like that, and people can be very humble about it. They'll go, that's the horse that made me. I really was stupid when I started, but this horse just gave me everything. And they're few and far between. And I think when you have those horses, quite often they don't make it, because, well, for whatever reason. But I think you can take fairly normal horses and make them great. And I think you can take great horses and make them nothing. And that's all to do with your attitude and your philosophy and how you approach it.
So some of these athletes here feel the competition, and do the horses feel that too, as much as the rider does?
I think that would be a great question for Lewis, but the thing that I see most is that people change, and then horses go, "Who are you?" Like I tell people, your horse is owned by Sybil. Remember that woman that had like 35 personalities? So you're
Yes, I
different.
dated her.
So it's like, they never know who you are. You're different when you feed, when you catch, when you groom, when you use the clippers, when you're on a trail, when you're in the arena, when you're at a competition. You're different, and you're the only one thing that a horse can rely on to be the same. And that's where the relationship is so important. And our ability to have self-control and self-discipline and be the leader that the horse needs in every situation, the same person.
Oh, we can just put in the zone after every statement.
Kind of like a fortune cookie. There you go. So what's the most common human mistake that you see every single day? What mistakes do we make over
With
and over
horses?
again with horses? Yes, not in just general life, but yes, with horses.
Good. Let's stay in my lane. I think the biggest problem is that people don't read horses. It's not a conversation. So they're not listening to the horse.
I was going to say listening.
Yeah, the horse whisperer was such a big thing. But really, we need to be horse listeners. We need to know what the horse is saying. And then you can have a conversation. Otherwise, you're just barking orders at them and making them obedient.
Yeah, I think they should retitle the movie The Horse Reader
The horse reader.
instead of The Horse Whisperer.
Yeah. So to me, it's like to be able to listen and interpret what your horse is saying, because that's what makes relationships amazing.
Have you ever had a horse that just said no?
And then what? A lot of them say no. So yes, that's like where you and I have a job,
Right.
right? Because most horses say no, but then defining whether it's I can't or I won't is the key.
And so describe, I mean, I know the answer to this, but
Yeah.
listeners
So
can't and won't.
if the horse says I won't, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. He's like, you in what army? I don't have to do this, and you can't intimidate me. And so now a lot of people will use more force, then horses will buck and rear, and then some go, okay, I'll do it. But some don't. They will fight you on the beaches. And then if you have a horse that's um, more of a
Can't.
tense kind of horse, fearful, unconfident, then when you ask them something, they're so afraid of pressure. It's I can't, and I'm confused, and I don't really know what you want. And then it's like people, your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, and you can't think. And most people tend to use more pressure when horses say no, when they don't do what you want. And so let's say that you've got the horse that says, I won't. Then you say, come here. Good boy. Let me ask you again. And the horse goes, no. And you go, I hear you. Good boy. Let's try again. Can you do that? And the horse goes, well, okay, now because I don't hate you so much. And they'll do it. But you can't escalate.
So what's a horse's version of kind of rolling his eyes, in your opinion?
Oh,
Give
they
me a
look
good
away.
example. They look
They
away.
look away. The nose will tell you a lot. Like where their nose is.
Hmm.
Like people go, oh, their ears, that's their attention, but the nose is the mind.
Interesting.
Because, like I'm looking at you across the table now, and if you're talking to me, talk to me.
You're looking great today.
Oh, well, please keep talking. My attention. No, okay, I'm just kidding. So if you were talking to me and I just kind of turned away like this, I've disconnected. And, an eye roll is just like, it's the same thing. It's disconnected and it's a bit judgmental. Horses do that all the time. They don't look at you. They go, well, there's you, but where's everything else? How do you get the horse to go, I see only you?
So you could say it in many different ways, even though you're saying the same thing. Is that how you keep their attention?
No, you have to connect with them.
You have to connect.
Because some people go, oh, you got to get them busy. It's like, if I wasn't looking at you, you wouldn't go, Linda, do this, do that, do that. I'd go, why are you bossing me? There's an art to connection. You've got to kind of attract that attention from them, not force it.
Pete, what do you think?
Well, this is what I teach.
I know, but you're awfully quiet over there, Pete.
No, I'm listening to the person I learned from. So, no, I always tell people that in my book, connection first happens by waiting. I'm going to wait for you to want to interact with me. And that's the first connection that I want.
Especially with scared horses. The waiting is very, very powerful. But sometimes with more boisterous, naughty horses, you can wait and jump on top of you. So then the conversation has to be different. It's like, I talked about extroverts and introverts, which is very common in human psychology, in that behavioral model. But in horses, I've redescribed the model now to make it a lot easier to understand. So we have movers and stoppers, and then you have pushy horses and tense horses, and you can have combinations of those. So a horse that's a mover, which is essentially an extrovert, if you're a stopper personality and you like to go slow and think, they're gone mentally. It's like, you're boring. I got to go to the next party.
It's like taking a dressage lesson. Can we slow down? That's what I always said with my lesson. Okay, so let's slow down here. This is going way too fast.
Yeah. So stoppers need to go slow, but movers need to go a little bit more quickly. And you quite often have mismatched relationships where the horse is a mover and the person's a stopper, or the horse is a stopper and the person's a mover. Now you've immediately got a disconnect because the energy is so different. And so I have to be the master of adapting my energy. If it's a mover horse and it's a very pushy, strong-minded horse, I got to arrive at that place with that horse, or he's not even going to see me. But if I bring because I'm a mover, you can probably tell, if I bring my mover energy to a very shy, stopper, tense horse, he's going to go like, this is scary. So I've got to be able to adapt and adjust my energy according to the horse. That's connection.
So do you believe we're overtraining horses and undereducating people?
Absolutely. Yes.
That's an easy question.
Yes.
Well, another way to look at it is it's confidence or connection with your horse. It's best riders are more disciplined or are they intuitive? What's your opinion on that?
Oh boy, I mean, I have become an intuitive rider,
Mhm.
but I had to do it in a very left brain way, where I had to learn and interpret and understand the details, and I couldn't just feel my way through it. And I remember years ago, there was one of our instructors in Tasmania in Australia, Philip Nye, was incredibly intuitive, but he couldn't talk to people. He was a horse. He was just part of all of that, kind of Tom Dorrance-ish, but
Well, my favorite story you tell is Hansa. And Pat flew in from Czechoslovakia to only watch the videos and could do amazing things.
incredibly talented.
And Pat couldn't teach him.
No.
And then you taught him.
Yes.
You tell a little bit of that story.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm a very positive person. So when I teach, I'm very encouraging and empowering, and I help people to think and, do all of that. But it's a very positive way. And when I figured out that Hansa was a pushy stopper or a left brain introvert, and depending on which model you use, I realized that that was completely the wrong approach to teach him. And the way to teach him was through criticism, which is very hard for me. And so, for example, and this kid's a freak, like, he's not a kid anymore, but back then, really so talented. He didn't even know how talented he was. Oh, hair everywhere. And he rides up bareback and bridleless with a stick. And he canters up to me and stops the horse in front of me. He goes, Linda, I'm working on Piaffe and Passage. Can you watch it? And I'm like, what the hell do I know about Piaffe and Passage? This is like 15 years ago. And I went, sure. So no bridle, no saddle. He does Piaffe, little horse, this pony. He's doing this perfect Piaffe. At least I knew what I was looking at, And then he transitions into the Passage, and now he's doing Passage, and the horse is a little above the bit, there's no bit, but his position's all wrong. But in my mind, I'm watching him going, who in the world can do this? There's nobody on the planet that can do what this kid's doing. He goes, Linda, so what do you think? And I went, well, I thought the Piaffe technically was really good. And the Passage was okay. He was probably a little high in the head, but the transition between them was terrible.
Wait a minute. I'd be in tears because Linda never talks that way.
Like that. But yeah, I knew how I needed to connect with him. And so he looks at me and goes, thank you. Doesn't ask for help. Thank God, because I didn't know what to do with that. Gallops off. 4 days later, he comes back and he says, Linda, can you watch my Piaffe Passage again? I said, sure. Just nailed it. Perfect. And I went, that's great. And he goes, thank you. He didn't want anybody to tell him how to do it. He just wanted to know what was good or what was not good, and then he would fix it.
He wanted to be the puzzle.
And that's why he wouldn't listen to Pat, because Pat wanted to tell him everything to do. And he's like, he would sit there. You can't see me on the screen, but he would have his arms folded. He'd be slouched in his chair, and his hat would be down like this. It made Pat crazy. Does that kid know how much we've spent to bring? I mean, so mad.
It's so fun.
Yeah, but
Let's talk about the earlier years. I think it's time for us to dive into what it was like when Dancing Pete was a young kid. Okay, give us a few stories that you knew him as a young whippersnapper that a lot of people on this podcast and the other podcast don't know about Dancing Pete.
well,
What did he look like when he first showed up?
what did he look like?
Well, Pat didn't know I was 37 when I said I was 37. His jaw dropped. And then he picked him back up and he goes, yeah, that's what I thought. I said, yeah.
But I mean, I just remember all this energy and passion for, getting into everything. And he never said no to anything. And then we found out he could dance. And so then he became an integral part of our shows. And I don't have any dirt on you. There's no
No. I mean, I've got money in my pocket right now, man. Come on.
something. But no, because he was always so positive about learning. Towards the end, there was some difficulties in relationship areas with my ex, but I mean, I always thought Pete was great, and we always got on super. In fact, this is a good bit of trivia. A few years ago, 7 years ago, 7 or 8, 7 years ago, I think. When was COVID? Yeah.
2000.
5 years ago.
Yeah. So it was right before
Yeah.
COVID.
Right.
And I got a call from this group at Pagosa Springs where I lived in Colorado. And they asked me if I would be on Dancing with the Stars, Pagosa Springs,
Yeah.
not
Oh.
Dancing with the
Oh.
Stars. Right? And I said, no. And they said, come on, really, we really want you to be in this. And I said, who, can I choose my own partner? And they went, well, usually not. And I said, well, if I can choose my partner, because I knew exactly who I would call, then I'll do it. So they went, okay. So I called Pete, and Pete went, I remember you on the phone. And I said, Pete, this is Pagosa Springs. It's not like Dancing with the Stars. But he reacted like it was the big TV.
I thought we were going TV.
Yeah. And then, so then we started practicing, and that was a load of fun. Every week we would meet and dance. Of course, he's teaching me because I can't dance to save my life. And then we went to Pagosa to have a session with the organizer and their coach, or just a choreographer, I guess.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and
My
they
favorite
couldn't do
part
it.
was she was kind of hesitant about who I was. And then she watched our chemistry dancing and she goes, well, he's going to have to play to the audience. And Linda goes, oh, you're going to have to stop him from doing that.
Careful what you wish.
And we met the guy that won the year before. And we both looked at him and I was just like, no, you won't make the set title twice because I'm going to win this with Linda.
That's so
Pretty
funny.
cocky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was a load of fun, and unfortunately we couldn't perform because it got shut down with COVID.
Well, the next gathering that we have here at the cabin,
Oh God.
you two can perform in front of
Yeah.
everybody. How does that
Sounds
sound?
good to me.
Sounds good.
I'll say yes.
That's too funny. So that's all you got on this little whippersnapper here? I thought he would wear the same shirt for 7 days in a row or something,
See, I wasn't there. He was in Pat's barn, not in my barn. So
Okay.
I only saw him
Oh, parties.
here and there over parties.
Okay, I'll tell you the parties. So Linda and I would have philosophy discussions. We'd get deep into philosophy.
Aha.
And everybody'd come around us and we would have a blast because they were trying to join in and they didn't get the ideas that we were going for. We had one where we were discussing why Cesar Millan and Pat should be together, and she was going against me, and we went into about 20 minutes and I finally went, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. I think it's the right thing. And I walked off. And 30 minutes later, she's still having the discussion with somebody else. And he's like, yeah, Pete gave up. And I smiled at Linda, and Linda winked at me like, you didn't get it, buddy. I made him realize that it's about what you want to do, not what somebody else wants to do.
Exactly.
So we would have some really great discussions. This is, to me, we're like everything we're talking about is getting people into the zone. I think that was the biggest thing that you taught me on campus was how do you get people in the zone? And I have a natural gift of doing that, but then having you coach got me just to a higher level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I just am curious, when we're talking about in the zone, we're talking about working with horses. What's the hardest lesson a horse ever taught you before Linda?
Before Linda?
Before
No,
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Before Linda?
No, I'm saying, what's the hardest lesson a horse ever taught you?
Oh,
Not you.
be humble. That horse that I mentioned that, was running off with me, and I mean, I nearly got killed so many times. I've got a big scar across my nose. He struck me in the face,
Mm.
and I wouldn't give up. People are going, you need to sell him, turn him into dog food. It's like, how can you say that to a girl who loves her horse?
Mhm.
Turn him into dog food. Oh, what a great idea. When should we do it? Tuesday? Oh no, washing my hair. Let's do it when, it's so flippant. It's like, kill him, put him down. He's no good. He's dangerous. Yes, he was. But I refused. Like, I would look at him in the paddock and go, why are you not bolting and rearing and bucking in the paddock? But you are with me. I nobody could tell me. And I watched videos. Like, I studied hard. I wanted to be really good. I was having lessons 5 days a week in dressage. And it was murder because everything was wrong. Everything was making this horse do it. And he was a tense mover, which means, he's unconfident, he's more fearful,
Mhm.
and everything means move. Some horses, they get upset, they just put the brakes on. This is like gone. And so, my greatest accomplishment was that I could keep him between me and the ground. But I had no communication. The relationship was terrible, but I didn't know any other way. Oh, he's crazy. That's just what he's like.
And I think
So it's very
I think
humbling.
that's the hardest part to get to people is there's a conversation happening.
Mhm.
not just shut up and do what I tell you. And there's moments when you got to say that because somebody's going to die. I've had people go, well, that's not how you're supposed to do that. And I'm like, look, you're about to die. So we're either going to have a discussion with this horse or we got to get this horse to do the
We
right
got to
thing
get
right
control.
now. Yeah.
So out
That's
of
control.
all the animals, it seems like horses come into our lives for a reason. Would you agree?
I do.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, that horse was a gift because he changed my life. Made me go
Not
down.
doing skincare anymore.
Yeah, made me go down a path that I would never like. I loved horses, but I never once imagined I could have a career with horses, let alone, you know, develop a worldwide business and reputation. That was crazy. Never thought about that. So every horse that has come into my life has taught me something profound and changed me and made me realize something about myself or how I had to um, change my approach because this horse is not like any other horse.
Hmm.
And, even though I think I'm not an arrogant person, the horse would have seen me as arrogant. It's like, well, you're all about you. What about me? You didn't ask me how I felt. You just told me to do it. You told me nicely, but you didn't listen to what I was saying. So a lot of that connected back to, my personal development and communication studies, where I became so obsessed with that. And the more I understood the horse's mind and how he thinks and how he feels, then I could adapt that to communicate with horses.
So all these riders, all these trainers, all these grooms people, they're listening to this podcast right now. So instead of having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on all this personal communication classes or courses or working with Tony Robbins or doing all these things, they should really just come and listen to you.
Did I pay you yet?
No, but you guys do have something coming up here, and Pete's involved with it too. And saying, well, Louise, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? Because I think we're going to try and get this out, rush this, so everyone can come to your class.
The Horseman Symposium, is
Yes.
that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a gathering of people who really are kind of our family, in terms of natural horsemanship and using psychology, in a kinder approach to horse training.
It's great because you got horse people that probably are not great at talking to a lot of people, but you're going to put it all in perspective for them on how to talk to the horse and actually how to talk to people in a lot of different ways with self-development, correct?
Well, I might have to rewrite my notes a little bit now. Well, my first session is called How to Talk Horse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all going to be about, how we approach them, how we have to moderate our energy and match the horse, and then to read the horse and understand what it is trying to tell us. So that's going to be my first session. And the second session is why ground skills often doesn't transfer to riding. Because a lot of people say, well, if you get the horse right on the ground, now it's going to be great when you ride. Well, not if you're a terrible rider. You might be a good leader on the ground and you get on the horse's back and you're afraid. That doesn't translate. So how do we adopt, a different level of leadership and confidence in the saddle, but still listen to the horse and still invite it into the conversation instead of just telling it what to do?
I think that's great.
And then each one of us will have our take. Luis Lucio is going to do dressage and wide ground work, and he'll tell us more when he gets on. And then mine is at Liberty. So,
and then there's Pete and
Statue
Jake.
of Liberty? Which one are we talking about?
yeah, Liberty having nothing on them. The truth, some
Oh,
people
that's
call the
great.
truth, which now I've learned that you can force the truth
Oh yeah.
at Liberty also. So, but I approach Liberty totally different than most people. I do bigger areas, and then round pins are when you refine things, not start in a round pin to where the horse is trapped.
Right.
And it's interesting because my experiences with Pat and Linda were how I found it. We were at Road of the Horse, and I watched Pat walk into a round pen where the horse's bubble was bigger than the round pen. And I said, well, how is this going to work? And when he walked in, the horse tried to jump out because there wasn't enough room for both of them. And that's the first time I went, oh, we're in too tight a space. We need to go to an arena, to a pasture kind of thing. So you're going to get lots of takes on things that we've taken, what Linda's taught us, to another level.
What's really interesting is like, I think everybody that's presenting has come up through the Parelli natural horsemanship route. and they all can talk to people as well as horses, which is
And
very
they have
cool.
their own perspective on how to do it
Right.
and communicate, which is awesome,
Exactly.
which is great. I think it's time for the lightning round.
Yes. This
You
is
ready?
the fun. So this is the fun part of In the Zone.
For you,
Yes. So this is where we don't want you to think. We just want you to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So these are going to be fast questions, and we just want the first thing that pops in, right, wrong, or indifferent. You ready?
okay, warned.
Okay, the first word, Pat. No, just joking.
Thank you very much, Ian.
All right, go ahead.
It's in the pot.
I know. I was just
One word that describes the perfect horse-human partnership.
Connection.
What misunderstood thing horses try to tell us?
Say that again. What?
Okay, so hold on. Most understood thing horses try to tell us.
Most understood or
Misunderstood. Sorry. Maybe I need to communicate a little bit.
They're afraid.
Trust or respect, which comes first?
Trust.
Softer or stronger? What do horses actually want?
Softer.
Horses with talent or horses with heart?
Heart.
What do horses forgive the least?
Ignorance.
Feel or timing, what matters?
Ego.
Ego.
Feel or timing, what matters more?
Feel.
What do horses reward the fastest?
Compassion.
What do horses forgive the least?
Arrogance.
Or ego?
Or ego.
Or ego. Confidence or connection?
Connection.
One word riders should eliminate from their thinking.
Make.
Biggest energy killer for a rider before they get on? I think cell phone.
Understand.
One word riders should eliminate from their thinking.
Can't.
What do horses feel first, tension or intention?
They feel intention.
Flow state with horse feels like one word.
Presence.
If horses could talk, would most riders be in trouble?
Yes.
I'm having a hard time today, man.
Yeah. This reading thing isn't good for you.
They talk human.
One thing horses wish humans would stop doing immediately.
Inconsistency.
One thing you wish every rider did before mounting.
Made sure the horse was connected to them.
Or are horses more honest than people?
Yes.
Who trains who more, horses or humans?
Horses train people more.
Have you ever met a horse that outsmarted you?
Oh, yes. Not for long.
Horses have taught you more about patience or presence.
Both.
One life lesson every horse person eventually learns the hard way.
Be humble.
What's harder, fixing a horse or fixing a human mindset?
Fixing a human mindset.
Do horses reflect who we are or who we're becoming?
They reflect. Do they reflect who we are or who we're becoming? I think horses are very much in the present. They reflect who we are.
All right, this is going to be a this or that part of it. Young horses or seasoned partner? Which one would you want?
Seasoned partner. That I seasoned.
Arena ride or trail ride?
Oh, I love arena rides. I love the
Liberty,
technical.
liberty or bridle?
Bridle. It's harder.
Watch or feel?
Feel.
Teach beginners or refine experts?
Everything.
I could have answered most of these for you. All right. Well, I think this has been a outstanding In the Zone.
I would like to add to my definition of in the zone,
Go ahead, please.
and I think it's to be 100% present.
I think that is so true, very much so. And so when I go home and I go on the lanai, I'm going to sit there and be 100% present to Lisa.
That's fantastic.
That's what I've learned here.
Wow. You're going to have to put your phone up and everything.
But thank you so much.
That you can give a person
Yes.
is or a horse or
Of
anything,
course.
be 100% present. Because most people aren't. They're on their cell phone. They're checking. So, oh, is that one on that? You know.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many of these riders I see on their horses as they're walking
Oh,
and just
boy.
on the cell phones and even in their carts and even on their scooters or whatever. I mean, it's crazy.
I want so bad to say something to them, but I know that they're not going to take the criticism to help them because all it takes is one.
Also not invited.
Right. But all it's going to take is one misstep. The horse spooks and they're not going to be ready for it.
So I definitely think that if there's one thing that these riders are taking away from it is definitely being more present. Definitely have that communication, that connection with the horse. I think even though a lot of people get on there, it's more about themselves than I think about the horse. So I think what you guys are talking about today, I think was great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
And
you
if we
so
want to
much.
know more about Linda Parelli and Happy Horse, Happy Life,
happyhorsehappylife.com. And actually, I've just published 2 new books. One is The Little Horse That Couldn't, and it's a story about a young filly who then is very talented and kind of goes through the ringer. And the moral to the story is that it's, a lot of self-development kind of books are about, you've got to become this and you've got to be strong and you've got to overcome all evil forces. But this one is about who you surround yourself with.
Awesome. I love that. I love it.
The other one I have is called Viva Verve, which is rediscovering your life after 50, 60. And, how do you go into that phase of your life? What are the challenges that you have and how do you overcome them?
how would you
Just
know
came out.
that? How would you know how to write
A
that?
little bit of personal experience woven throughout the whole thing.
You're only 40. Come on.
Good one.
Well,
Pete,
Thank
you're
you.
still doing it. You're still doing it. You're still giving all those nice compliments.
Charmer.
Pete and I want to thank Linda Parelli for sharing her wisdom, her heart, and her perspective with us. And to all the listeners, keep showing up, keep learning, keep writing, and be in the zone. Thank you, Linda, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
and if you're at the barn and you think somebody should listen to this, please let them know that listen to In the Zone with Ian Robb and Dancin Pete Rodda.
And learn how to talk horse.
There you go.
Yes. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on another powerful episode of In the Zone with Ian Robb and Dancin Pete Rodda. Whether you ride, compete, or simply love your animals like family, today's episode was a reminder that true teamwork starts with connection and that health is the ultimate performance edge. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And catch us next time as we dive deeper into the mind, body, and bold journeys of top performers. Until then, stay focused, stay inspired, and keep riding in the zone.